Skeletal system. Multicellular animals need support to maintain body structure. Various groups of organisms show various supportive structures, either inside or outside the body, or both inside as well as outside. You have studied that these skeletal structures are called exoskeleton when present on outer surface of the body, and endoskeleton when they are present inside the body. Bones and cartilage form major endoskeletal components. Exoskeletal components change from lower to higher groups of animals. These include chitinous structures, nails, horns, hooves, scales, hair, etc. You may add to the list. Do any of these exoskeletal structures help in movement and locomotion? How do scales and plates of a snake help in movement and locomotion? Are scales of a fish and that of a snake similar? Find out more information about exoskeletal structures and their role in movement and locomotion. Can you imagine life without skeletal system? Our skeletal system is made up of cartilage and bone, which together form the framework of the body. Cartilage is slightly pliable, while bones have hard matrix. Bones form the framework of our body and thus provide shape, which gives us our identity. They protect delicate organs, thus help in smooth functioning of body. Joints between bones help in movement and locomotion. Bones provide firm surface for attachment of muscles. They are reservoirs of calcium and one important site for hemopoiesis. Endoskeleton of an adult human consists of 206 bones, which can be grouped into two principal divisions, axial and appendicular skeleton. Bones of axial skeleton lie along the longitudinal axis of human body. Bones of appendicular skeleton include bones of forelimb, hind limb, and girdles. Girdles are the bones that connect the limbs to the axial skeleton. Temporal bones. Paired bones situated laterally just above the ear on either side. Each temporal bone gives out zygomatic process that joins zygomatic bone to form zygomatic arch. Just at the base of zygomatic process is mandibular fossa, a depression for mandibles, that is lower jawbone, that forms only movable joint of skull. This bone harbors ear canal that directs sound waves into the ear. Processes of temporal bones provide points for attachment for various muscles of neck and tongue. Occipital bone. Present at the back of the head, the single bone forms posterior part and most of the base of cranium. Inferior part of this bone shows foramen magnum, the opening through which medulla oblongata connects with spinal cord. On either side of foramen magnum are two prominent protuberances called occipital condyles. These fit into the corresponding depressions present in first vertebra. Sphenoid bone. Median bone present at the base of the skull that articulates with all other cranial bones and holds them together. This butterfly-shaped bone has a saddle-shaped region called sella turcica. In this hypophyseal fossa, the pituitary gland is lodged. Ethmoid bone. This median bone is spongy in appearance. It is located anterior to sphenoid and posterior to nasal bones. It contributes to formation of nasal septum and is major supporting structure of nasal cavity. In this chapter, you're going to learn about sutures, a type of immovable joints. In skull, there are many sutures present. Four prominent ones are 1. Coronal suture, joins frontal bone with parietals. 2. Sagittal suture, joins two parietal bones. 3. Lambdoidal suture, joins two parietal bones with occipital bone. 4. Lateral or squamous sutures, joins parietal and temporal bones on lateral side. Facial bones. 14 facial bones give characteristic shape to face. Growth of face stops at the age of 16. Facial bones are as under. Nasals. Paired bones form bridge of nose. Maxillae. Upper jaw bones, paired bones that join with all facial bones except mandible. Upper row of teeth are lodged in these. Palliatives. Paired bones form roof of buccal cavity or floor of nasal cavity. Zygomatic bones, commonly called cheek bones. You have read about zygomatic arch earlier in this chapter. Lacrimal bones, smallest of the facial bones. These bones form medial wall of each orbit. They have lacrimal fossa that houses lacrimal sacs. These sacs gather tears and send them to the nasal cavity. Inferior nasal conchae. They form part of lateral wall of nasal cavity. These help swirl and filter air before it passes to lungs. Vomer. Median, roughly triangular bone that forms inferior portion of nasal septum. Mandible. Median bone that forms lower jaw. Largest and strongest facial bone. Only movable bone of skull. It has curved horizontal body and two perpendicular branches, that is rami. These help in attachment of muscles. It has lower row of teeth lodged in it. Hyoid bone. It is a U-shaped bone that does not articulate with any other bone. It is suspended from temporal bone by ligaments and muscles. It is located between mandible and larynx. It has horizontal body and paired projections called horns. It provides site for attachment of some tongue muscles and muscles of neck and pharynx. Ear ossicles. 3 tiny bones, namely malleus, incus, and stapes, together called ear ossicles, are present in each middle ear. Vertebral column. The vertebral or spinal column is popularly called the backbone. It is composed of a total of 26 ring-like bones called vertebrae. These are divided into 5 groups according to the regions they occupy. The neck region has 7 neck, that is cervical vertebrae. Then there are 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 1 sacrum, fused 5, and 1 coccyx, fused 4. Vertebral column is curved to maintain balance of body in an erect position. The curve absorbs pressure and shock while walking, running, and protects the column from breaking. Typical vertebra. Each vertebra has prominent central body called centrum. Centra of human vertebrae are flat in anterior-posterior aspect. Hence, human vertebrae are amphiplatian. From either side of centrum are given out two short, thick processes which unite to form an arch-like structure called neural arch posterior to centrum. Neural arch forms vertebral foramen which surrounds the spinal cord. Vertebral foramina of all vertebrae form a continuous neural canal. Spinal cord, along with blood vessels and protective fatty covering, passes through neural canal. Point where two processes of centrum meet, neural arch is drawn into a spinous process called neural spine. From the base of neural arch, two articulating processes called zygapophyses are given out on either side. The anterior are called superior and posterior called inferior zygapophyses. In a stack of vertebrae, inferior zygapophysis of one vertebra articulates with superior zygapophysis of next vertebra. This allows slight movement of vertebrae without allowing them to slip off. At the junction of zygapophysis, a small opening is formed on either side of vertebra called intervertebral foramen that allows passage of spinal nerve. From the base of neural arch, lateral processes are given out called transverse processes. Neural arch, neural spine, and transverse processes are meant for attachment of muscles. Let us now study modifications seen in vertebrae in different regions of vertebral column. Cervical, thoracic, and lumbar vertebrae. Neck or cervical vertebrae. The first cervical vertebra is called the atlas, as seen in the figure. The second vertebra is the axis. The remaining 5 neck vertebrae do not have any special names. Thoracic vertebrae, as seen in the figure, have long neural spines which are directed backward. Each of their transverse processes bears on its extremity a facet for articulation with the tubercle of the rib. Lumbar vertebrae have well-developed neural spines and transverse processes which serve for the attachment of powerful back muscles. Sacrum and coccyx. Sacrum is a large bone formed by the fusion of 5 vertebrae. To it are articulated the hip bones on either side. Coccyx is the last section of the backbone. It is made up of 4 fused vertebrae which represent the rudimentary tail of the human body. Sometimes, as a freak of nature, babies are born with a small tail which the doctors usually remove. Thoracic cage. The thoracic cage is formed by 12 thoracic vertebrae, 12 pairs of ribs, and a sternum. Ribs are articulated dorsally with 12 thoracic vertebrae and ventrally and sternum. The last 2 pairs of ribs are called floating ribs. Sternum, that is the breastbone, is a long and flat bone. In adult, it measures about 15 to 17 centimeters in length. It is present in mid-ventral region. It is divided into 3 parts: manubrium, body, and xiphoid process. Thoracic cage gives proper shape to the thorax. It helps in breathing movements along with muscular diaphragm and intercostal muscles. Sternum. It is a flat, narrow bone around 15 centimeters in length. It is placed medially in anterior thoracic wall, that is chest region. It consists of three distinct parts: manubrium, body, and xiphoid processes. Manubrium shows two notches on anterior lateral side for attachment with clavicle of each side. It also shows two notches on each of the lateral side for attachment of first two pairs of ribs. Body of sternum is a flat bone that shows 5 notches on lateral aspect, which are meant for direct or indirect attachment of ribs. Ribs are attached to sternum by means of cartilaginous extensions called costal cartilages. Xiphoid process is lowermost part of sternum, which is cartilaginous initially and gets ossified in adults. It provides space for attachment of diaphragm and abdominal muscles. Ribs. There are 12 pairs of ribs which, along with the thoracic vertebrae and the breastbone, constitute the bony cage or rib cage. The first 7 pairs of ribs, that is, true ribs, are attached in front to the sternum, which is the breastbone, with the help of hyaline cartilage. The 8th, 9th, and 10th pairs of ribs do not articulate directly with the sternum, but join the 7th rib with the help of hyaline cartilage. The last two, 11th and 12th pairs of ribs, are not attached to the sternum and are therefore known as floating ribs. The appendicular skeleton. Pectoral girdle. The pectoral girdle or shoulder bones attach the bones of the upper extremities to the axial skeleton. Each of the 2 pectoral girdles consists of 2 bones, the clavicle and the scapula. The pectoral girdles have no articulation with the vertebral column. A. Clavicles or collarbone. The clavicles are long, slender bones with a double curvature. The broad, flat, lateral end of the clavicle articulates with the scapula. B. Scapula. The scapula or shoulder blades are large, triangular, flat bones situated in the posterior part of the thorax between the levels of the 2nd and 7th ribs. It provides a surface of attachment for shoulder joints. Bones of forelimb, humerus. Bones of forelimb consist of humerus, radius, and ulna, together forming forearm bones. Bones of wrist, the carpals, bones of palm, the metacarpals, and bones of digits, phalanges, together making to 30 bones. Humerus. This is the bone of upper arm. It has hemispherical head at its proximal end. On either side of head of humerus are present a pair of projections termed greater and lesser tubercles. There is a deep groove between the tubercles called bicipital groove, where a tendon of biceps muscle is attached. Shaft of humerus shows deltoid tuberosity. Distal end of humerus shows pulley-like part called trochlea that articulates with ulna. Radius and ulna. Radius is located laterally on thumb side of the foramen. Proximal end of radius has disc-like head that articulates with humerus bone. The shaft of radius widens distally to form styloid process. Ulna is located medially on little finger side of foramen. At the proximal end of ulna, there is a prominent process called olecranon process that forms elbow joint with humerus bone. On the lateral side, near the upper end of ulna is present the radial notch into which the side of head of radius is fixed. Radius and ulna articulate with each other at upper and lower extremities by superior and inferior radio-ulnar joints. In between the shaft of two bones, interosseous membrane is present. Carpals. These are bones of wrist arranged in two rows of 4 each. Metacarpals. 5 elongated metacarpals form bones of palm. Their proximal ends join with carpals and distal ends form knuckles. Phalanges. These are bones of fingers and thumb. 4 fingers have 3 phalanges each and thumb has 2, thus making it 14 phalanges in each hand. Upper extremity, pelvic girdle, and lower extremity. The bones of each upper extremity include the humerus, ulna, radius, carpals, metacarpals, and pelvic girdle, the hip. The pelvic girdle consists of 2 hip bones which attach the lower extremities to the trunk at the sacrum. Each hip bone has 3 fused components, ilium, pubis, and the ischium. Lower extremity, legs. The bones of each lower extremity include the femur, tibia, fibula, tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. The bones of the foot are arranged in 2 arches, the longitudinal arch and the transverse arch, to provide support and leverage. Bones of lower limb. 1. Femur. The thigh bone is the longest bone in the body. The head is joined to shaft at an angle by a short neck. It forms ball and socket joint with acetabulum cavity of coxal bone. The lower 1/3 region of shaft is triangular flattened area called popliteal surface. Distal end has 2 condyles that articulate with tibia and fibula. Patella, also called kneecap, is a sesamoid bone. It is a flat, rounded bone with a pointed lower end. Tibia and fibula. These are the 2 long bones of shank or lower leg. The 2 are connected to each other at the extremities. In between the 2 bones, interosseous membrane is present. Tibia. It is much thicker and stronger than fibula. Its broad and expanded upper end articulates with femur. Lower end articulates with talus, a tarsal bone. Fibula. It is a long, slender bone on lateral side of tibia. Tarsals. These are the bones of ankle. 7 tarsals are arranged in 3 rows, 2 proximal, 1 intermediate, and 4 distal. Metatarsals. 5 metatarsal bones support the sole region of the foot. Proximally, they attach with distal row of tarsals. Distally, metatarsals articulate with phalanges. Phalanges. These are the bones of the toes. Except the big toe, which has 2 phalanges, rest 4 toes have 3 phalanges each.